We are excited to have you. I'm Lindsey Tepe. I'm a policy advisor with the Office of Post-Secondary Education here at the Department of Education. I'm really pleased to have the opportunity to support this initiative, working to engage higher education stakeholders like yourselves to advance the National Partnership for Student Success. Our nation's colleges and universities are important partners in the work of combating pandemic-related learning loss. As we heard this morning from John King, as well as our other speakers, we know this issue has a direct impact on institutions of higher education. Our students from our P-12 classrooms are going to be entering their doors every year for the next decade. We know that when students don't have all the resources that they need to succeed in elementary and secondary school, this will have an impact on their college and career readiness. We also know that college-age students are well positioned to work in NPSS aligned roles as tutors, as mentors, and post-secondary transition coaches. Research has shown the benefits of serving in these near-peer roles, both for them and the P-12 students they work with. The direct impact to their public service is tangible, and for many college students, serving in these roles also is directly connected to their future careers. Having just navigated the transition to higher education themselves, we also know their insight and their inspiration can make a tremendous difference to the P-12 students they work with. And the examples that were shared from our speakers this morning, I think really hone in on the point of exactly what that tangible impact can look like for the college students, for all of our adults in both K-12 systems and in higher ed. And that inspiration just really, I think, carries through to us here at the department as well. Hearing these stories keeps us motivated in this work. That's why earlier this year, NPSS did launch this higher education coalition. We want to challenge colleges and universities to work collaboratively with our elementary and secondary schools to help boost the number of college students serving in these roles. One of the ways we've encouraged colleges and universities to help do this is through using federal work study dollars to support students in doing this work. But that's just one way institutions can support their students to get involved. We know there are a lot of other initiatives at the state and local level, and colleges and universities are best aware of what is happening organically at the ground level to help get involved with them. And we know our NPSS partners in communities can really help identify those opportunities too for colleges and universities that haven't gotten started yet. We want to make sure that colleges and universities see a role for themselves in this effort. And we really hope that if you're not involved, that we can help you find entry points to get involved. And if you work with colleges and universities at associations and other roles, if they are part of your membership, or if you work at an institution and are just wanting your institution to get involved, please reach out to us and we are happy to find a pathway to get you involved in this work. I want to take a few moments to thank and spotlight each of the campuses who have stepped up in recent months and set goals to either one, increase the percentage of federal work study funding their institution uses to support college students in NPSS roles, or two, increase the number of college students in NPSS roles through other programs and funding streams. First, thank you so much to the institutions that have joined the coalition in the past month leading up to this summit. Dillard University, the George Washington University, Long Beach City College, Princeton University, Texas A&M University, Corpus Christi, the University of Pennsylvania, and Widener University. We also have university systems that have engaged many of their campuses to join the coalition. In the Connecticut State Colleges and University system, we are excited to welcome Central, Eastern, Southern, and Western CSCU campuses. I'm seeing some folks like fist bumping in the audience. I'm like, yes, thank you. Thank you for being here. We also heard, that the SUNY system is really involved, and we are also very, very, very happy to have the City University of New York system involved as well. Just recently, the Borough of Manhattan Community College, Brooklyn College, College of Staten Island, Hunter College, Lehman College, and Queens College joined the coalition. The strength of systems working together as a part of this initiative is a huge multiplier effect, and we know not every state has that support with huge systems to get involved, but we know the collaboration between individual colleges as well is really important and strong in those states, and find a friend and join with them. So we know the Higher Education Coalition launched with 27 initial campuses in May. With these new commitments, that number has grown to 49, as Assistant Secretary Roberto Rodriguez shared earlier today. We really are grateful for our partners, and we're looking forward to growing this initiative into the next year of this partnership. I'll pause there. I know we have a short time amount today, so I want to make sure that we jump right into our panel discussion. So with that, I would like to invite our speakers up to the stage. Each speaker is coming from one of our Higher Education Coalition member institutions, and I'm really excited for them to be able to share more of what this work looks like on their campuses. I'm going to transition microphones, and we will get started. Oh, not exactly. That's all right. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us here today. I'm so excited to have each and every one of you on the stage. I know during our prep call, we had a lot of content we wanted to get through. So to dive right in, I'd love for you each to just introduce yourselves, your institution, and what you do on your campus.
Good morning. No, it's afternoon. Now I've got, right, and now I've gotten it out of the way. So I'm Amy Cohen. I am the Assistant Vice Provost and Executive Director of the Honey W. Nashman Center for Civic Engagement and Public Service at George Washington University.
Hi, I'm Olivia Edwards. I'm a Community Engagement Specialist at Community College of Philadelphia within our Institute for Community Engagement and Civic Leadership.
Hi, everyone. Laurie Henry, and it's my great privilege to serve as the Dean of the Seidel School of Education at Salisbury University on Maryland's Eastern Shore.
Hi, I'm Leila Hussain. I am a senior at George Washington University, and I'm a federal work study tutor with the Math Matters program with the Honey Nashman Center.
Thank you all so much. And as I mentioned, each of their institutions is a member of our Higher Education Coalition. So I'd love to just get us kicked off by asking you each to talk a little bit about how your institution got involved and what the motivation was for really joining the effort that NPSS has kicked off.
I guess when I saw that NPSS existed, I got really excited. I believe, and we believe at GW, like as Chancellor King said earlier, that higher eds are civic institutions in their communities. And we at the Nashman Center and at GW have long had close partnerships with our K-12 schools, both directly through the schools as well as through nonprofit organizations like Reading Partners and others who are working to build academic, civic, and personal success for students. So when I saw NPSS, I saw it as a great opportunity for us to continue to do this work and to continue to grow opportunities, especially for our students and our federal work study students in particular, to be able to continue that partnership and grow it and deepen it.
Yeah, I think for us, when we first learned about the NPSS and the President's Call to Action, we knew pretty much right away that it's something we wanted to be involved in. Our student support program has been around for a while, but like many institutions, it was put on hold during the pandemic. And so I think now being on the other side of that, we really want to get that momentum back and get our program back on its feet. And so I think it just made a lot of sense for us to join the coalition because we see the value in the supports and the resources that are available to us, and also just to have the accountability and challenge to set a goal and work towards it.
So to start answering this question, I want to provide just a little bit of context of Salisbury University. A few years ago, we were designated as a Carnegie Community Engaged campus. And so really community service is in the DNA or the threads that run through our campus community, whether that's a faculty learning community that volunteers time for programming at our local zoo, our outdoor education majors who are out on the shoreline cleaning up trash and making a beautiful area for us along the Chesapeake Bay. So we really do have this commitment to public service on our campus. And we also have an Institute for Public Affairs and Civic Engagement that's headed up by Dr. Sandy Pope, who is a faculty director of that. And he first showed the NPSS information to me, and I got very excited like Amy did. And you know, I've really committed my life to education, to public education, and to making sure that every student had equal opportunity and equal access to higher education. Many of our students struggle financially and have to work, at least part-time, as they're going through college. And so I saw this as a great opportunity for us to be able to provide some financial support for our students while supporting our network of 40 schools across 7 districts.
Well, I can't speak to why my institution got involved because I was not there when that happened. But I am the student perspective here, so I guess I'll talk about why I got involved. Well, around this year in January, I was looking for federal work study positions because I needed the financial aid and I needed the money. And there were a bunch on the website that they have, and I was looking through them, and this one really caught my eye, Math Matters, being a tutor, because what I want to do in the future is work with kids. So any practice is always welcome. So that's really, it caught my eye, and I applied, and it was a great way to get your community service in as well as get paid. So I applied, and I really liked it the first semester that I did it. So I continued, and here I am today.
Thank you so much, Leila. And I'm going to pick up on something, Amy, that you had said about why your campus got involved and engaged. I think, you know, digging in a little bit deeper to what we all started to, or what you all started to share, I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about who on campus it was important to have bought in order to really make the commitment and focus on this as a strategic priority. Directing it to you, but if others want to jump in afterward, please feel free.
Yeah, we really collaborate across not only our institution, but outside. And I will say, we got started in this work actually from an outside entity. City Tutor DC reached out to us and said, we'd love to see GW continue to do this work through high impact tutoring. And from that outside connection, we really had to immediately pivot internally to talk with our financial aid office and student employment office. And we talked to students about what they would want in a program. And once we began to do that, we learned that students really, and we wanted a deeper training program for our students. We've been doing tutoring for years, but I think we felt the need to raise the bar. And so we reached out to a program on campus called GW Teach, which is an innovative program. It's a minor for undergraduate students. We don't have an undergraduate school of education. So this is a pathway for STEM students to be able to become certified as teachers once they go through a variety of courses with that program and their STEM major. So we reached out to them to partner with us to be the training and curriculum development partners in that program. So we really partnered very closely with them. And also because we are embedded within the DC Public Schools, we reached out to our partners in the Office of Partnerships at DCPS, to the Connected Schools Office, which is DC's Community Schools Office, where we have been partnered for many years, serving in the community schools. And they helped us to identify which schools we would work with, so that we could continue to work with schools we have been working with and maintain relationships. So it really was a kind of entire set of reciprocal partnerships that got generated to do this.
That's so great. And I know we heard a little bit about some of the partnerships from the K-12 side earlier this morning. And so, you know, I think that brings me to my next question for you, Olivia. I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about what it was like for your institution to really reach out and think about how to engage college students in the P-12 support roles, and also like find schools that would have them in those roles.
Yeah, it's a great question. So I guess to put a little context to our program, so our Adopt a School program is what we call it, but it's been around at the college for a while. But before the pandemic, it kind of migrated over to my team, which is the Institute for Community Engagement. and civic leadership. And our mission really is to make a positive difference on social justice issues. So we have a lot of programs within our team, but we also focus on building mutually beneficial community partnerships throughout the city. And so we knew that with the Adopt a School program migrating to us, we really wanted community partnerships to be like a central part of what we do. And so there's a number of ways that has looked, but I'd say, we have a really strong relationship with the School District of Philadelphia, and similar to what Amy just mentioned, they have helped us identify schools with high needs, where our students can provide that support. And kind of another layer to that is we have given focus to some of the schools in our direct neighborhood around our college campus. And we really see that as a good example of a mutually beneficial relationship, because a lot of those schools have been identified as high need, but also as much as possible, we want to remove barriers for our students so that they can participate in the program. So in addition to being a federal work study position, transportation is also an issue for our students. And so by partnering with the schools near our campus, where students have to come for classes anyway, our hope is that they can walk there and be consistent and follow through with their commitments. And we work with other nonprofits as well to sort of recruit our students to be placed in different roles. So there's some nonprofits that provide virtual tutoring opportunities. I think, again, coming out of the pandemic, students are kind of looking for a diverse array of opportunities, things that they can customize to their schedule, which is attractive to them.
Sorry, I turned off my mic and couldn't find the on switch. Thank you so much, Olivia. It's, interesting to hear about some of the similarities in building off of the relationships that you already had. And speaking of building off of kind of existing frameworks, I'm thinking a little bit, Laurie, I know our call to action had urged institutions to leverage existing funding sources, existing programs and infrastructure. I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about the existing programs that you're working to expand, and also if there's anything new that you're looking to add on, kind of thinking about the additional challenges that the pandemic has posed in terms of learning loss.
Absolutely. So being a school of education and having a really robust network of partner schools, we've been doing this kind of work for decades. Our institution started as a teacher's college way back in 1925. And so we have really deep roots in teacher preparation and really having those strong partnerships with the schools in our region. Back in 1992, we had an endowment come into the School of Education to establish a literacy center. And so Dr. and Mrs. May donated some money to get that tutoring center started on our campus. And it is a very robust tutoring program. Our students who are in our undergrad programs for early childhood and elementary education provide service through tutoring as part of their coursework with one of their courses. So they have a literacy assessment course that meets in the evenings. They learn how to tutor, learn the high impact practices for tutoring specifically in reading and writing. And then they're paired one-on-one with a child from our K-8 partner schools. And the child comes in, the students have about an hour to do their lesson planning, guided and coached by a faculty member. And then they spend about an hour and 15 minutes working one-on-one with that child. We do have them host parent-teacher conferences, so they are working with the parents, helping the parents understand what they can do at home to help support that student when their tutoring ends. And we've been doing this for decades. We have real high impact in changing reading levels and changing achievement for these students. We have many students that come back as college students, and they just talk about what a life-changing moment it was for them to come through our tutoring program. And so that's one of our really robust tutoring options that we have on campus. We can serve about 120 students a year because it is high-intensive tutoring. We have been working with AmeriCorps for more than a decade. In the last 5 years, our students have provided 360,000 public service hours, and they've received over $1.1 million in scholarships for that work. And so again, a lot of opportunities for tutoring through that. And then federal work study, our students have always worked through the America Reads program with our local elementary schools. And so this is a great way to kind of tag on to some of the things that we were already doing, and looking at additional resources for that and being able to support that work. We do have a Educators Rising Collegiate chapter at SU that started a few years ago. And so we now have education majors who are interested in helping with tutoring as well. So we're starting to pilot a project right now with some Saturday tutoring sessions for children in the local area. We also have students that work at our local community centers that are within walking distance to our campus. So it's a good option for those who don't have the transportation. And then recently, Wycomico County Public Schools, which is our largest school partner, received a new grant from the Maryland State Department of Education for the Maryland Tutoring Corps. And so through that project, we will be partnering with the school district to provide tutoring in middle school math. So that's up and coming.
Thank you so much. And I appreciate the variety of initiatives you built on and the fact that, as you mentioned within the College of Education and even the different pieces that you've each talked about in your contexts, public service can also be career connected. And I know those are two parallel goals of the Federal Work Study program, allowing students to have a real opportunity to work in their chosen field or develop job-related skills, and also really dig in on community service and how to give back. And just appreciate how the examples you've shared have shown how these roles can serve kind of both of those ends. I'm going to come to you, Leila, in a second. I just want to let everyone know that I'll be coming to the audience next. So please think a little bit if you have any questions while we have this wealth of expertise here. And we'll have a microphone coming around here in just a minute. Leila. You started to talk about this a little bit, how even for you, this has been connected to some of your career goals. I think the other question, as the student voice, as someone who is a current federal work study student, I'm wondering if you can share any recommendations that you would have for us, for campus leaders. How could you be better supported, or what other resources could make this experience more impactful for you and the kids that you've been working with?
Well, the Math Matters program has a really robust support system for its tutors already. We have training sessions every week in which they're led by a professor who was formerly a middle school teacher who taught math. So, really good resource. And I think that has really helped with also facilitating conversations between tutors who have more expertise in tutoring with this program. A big part of the Math Matters tutoring sessions and training sessions is about connecting the tutors with each other so that they will be able to give each other support. But I do think that in order to implement a successful student model for tutoring, we have to understand where a lot of these students are coming from in the beginning of the semester, especially if they're like incoming freshmen. Many of them do want to do community service. They're looking to get involved with their community. But a lot of them are still very new to the world. They have just moved out of, they've just moved out of their hometown. They're coming to live on campus. And a lot of them are federal work study students, so they really do need a job to get their financial aid. And so something that helps them with their community service and their financial aid is, it's something that draws them. And they might not be able to understand exactly the impact that they have until a little bit later on when they've actually met the kids and started tutoring and talking and understanding really what's going on and how the schooling system works and why they actually want to be involved with a program like Math Matters or any other program in the Nashman Center. So in the beginning of the semester, I think it's really important to have adults around who are experienced in this, who, like in the training sessions that Math Matters has a former teacher who can tell you about how to build connections with these kids in the beginning and how to really get involved. And then later kind of pivot those training sessions into being more about an open space for tutors, because we are the ones who are in the schools and we're the ones who are tutoring the children, and we're the ones who are actually actively working with these students. And we do see a lot that we want to change or we want implemented, like our ideas. And I think that's really important for a lot of campus leaders to understand that we really do want to be listened to and respected, and we want our ideas to be, we want people to be open to our ideas, especially if they're implementing change in a way that helps us and the students that we're tutoring. I have a great boss. Shout out to Abby. She listens to all of us, and so yeah, just wanted to give her a shout out. But yeah.
Thank you so much, Leila. I think it's really a great advice for anybody looking to do this work. You know, federal work study can mean a lot of different things in different campus contexts. And in this area, you know, you're absolutely right. If a freshman is coming to campus, they were just in a 12th grade classroom the year before, and having the appropriate supports to do this work effectively and make the most of those near peer relationships. Absolutely, having people who have done this work and have a lot of experience as resources is critical. So glad to see that that is happening at the George Washington University. And we're excited that other institutions doing this work have similar models, and their expertise and experience as part of the higher education coalition can, you know, be part of the resource any additional campus joining the coalition would receive. Learn from their experiences. We are certainly constantly learning from our members about what works and what scales. So with that, do we have any questions from the audience? Do we have a microphone available? Okay. I have a lot of questions that I could ask, but I do want to give folks an opportunity to jump in.
There's this narrative in our country that higher ed can't move fast and isn't nimble enough to meet urgent needs. I think the folks represented on stage today tell us that that's probably a bit of a false narrative. So I'm hoping that each of you could speak a little bit more about how are you being nimble to meet the urgent need, particularly when you're competing with giant national fly-by-night organizations seeking precious federal relief dollars. And so I'm curious if you could speak more about what it means to be nimble in the context of higher ed.
I would start by saying part of it is preparation, right? Each of us talked about the wealth of experience that we have in this area. So part of it is to have experience, but the other part is to pay attention to what's happening in the world, and then to take those opportunities and really work with your colleagues and with others to make those things happen. Higher ed's our neighbors. We live in mutually beneficial relationship with our community, we hope. Each of these institutions certainly do. And so we have a responsibility to work closely with our neighbors to make that happen. Individual centers, individual schools have the ability to move more quickly. Resources help. Resources help a lot. The funding that has been available through the ARP money and some through private money that came to our center really allowed us to ramp up and make a change. Without that, it would have been harder, building on the federal work study resources that we already use.
Yeah, I think just to add on to that, you know, in addition to staying in tune with your schools and checking in with them and seeing what are their actual needs, I think is kind of a little bit to what Leila was touching on, but staying in tune with your students. You know, if they're kind of the core of your program and you're trying to recruit them, well, what are they going to respond to, you know? And so I think that's another aspect of being nimble and, you know, answering the call, is providing them with the support that they need, talking, you know, making sure we're talking to them about, as it was mentioned earlier today, just kind of what are some of the benefits to them of participating in the program. So anyway, I think it's one, you know, one piece of the bigger picture of how do we actually respond to this.
I think another part of this, in addition to the resources, is just really listening to your partners, your school partners and your community partners, of what their needs are and trying to meet their needs. I think often two times institutes of higher education come at a problem from their own lens, and they see it very differently than the people who are in the classroom or in the community center supporting the students that they're working with. So I would say be really good listeners and then just kick around some ideas of what might work, and don't be afraid to try something. Try it. If it doesn't work, I think we all know that failure is the best learning tool, right? And just try and try again.
Yeah, I mean, all of this stuff is basically what I was talking about. I do think that, I love all of my students that I work with, and every time that I bring up something that would help me help them, it's coming from a place of, I really do want them to learn and I want them to be successful. And I can see what's happening. I can see what's going on, and because I'm actually there and I know what they need. And listening to us and what your tutors need is really just like the foundation of everything, especially since a lot of us also talk to the teachers, like the teachers who are going in every day and are there 8 hours a day with these students. We do work closely. A lot of the tutors take time out of their sessions to go and talk to the teachers as well. So a lot of us do have this like wealth of knowledge about just individual kids and their needs, and just how our schools run. And it's really helpful when like our bosses and our employers are like really attentive and listening and understand that they might not be in the school, and so they might not understand everything that's going on. And so listening to us is like the key component to making all of this work.
Thank you so much. And I feel like the pieces that you touched on, Leila, as well, talk to, there is, I think, a perception that higher education is not flexible. And I think the relationships that you each touched on show how, those forged connections help institutions become more responsive. It also gets to another, I think, misconception that for many colleges, we think about ivory towers, and we think that colleges aren't one with their community. They're separate and apart from them. We close the gates and it's very insular, and colleges don't meet their students until they come to campus. But I think that narrative is not correct and increasingly changing in places where maybe at one time it was. I think colleges and universities are trying to open their doors and branch out and become more engaged through schools of education, through their civic engagement offices, through their public engagement offices, and build out the community development pieces as well. So I'm glad that you've each kind of touched on how dynamic colleges can be for their communities and for their whole regions, depending on the size and the relationships. And it doesn't have to be limited just to a big city like Philadelphia or Washington, D.C. This is true for many of our colleges and universities all across the country. Do we have any other questions from the audience? Here in the back. Oh, one, and then in the back.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Vita with Jumpstart for Young Children. And my question is, how do your institutions engage college students during the summer? Especially we know that summer learning loss is a thing with the students. So how do you engage your college students to have either housing, course credit, so they can properly support the students in the cities that your universities are based in?
I'm happy to start with that one. So post-pandemic, we launched a series of what we call summer enrichment academies at Salisbury University. And through this initiative, we bring K through 12 students to our campus during the summer for 1 or 2 week long institutions that they do with us. We call it enrichment, even though we are helping to solve some of the learning gaps, but we really want the students to employ those critical thinking skills, problem-solving skills, being innovative and creative in the classroom as well, so they get excited about learning, so it's just not another school day. And then we tap our teacher candidates to work as teaching assistants. And so they're in the classrooms teaching with these students along with faculty members. And we run everything from STEM to philosophy camps, depending on what the students' desires are, needs are. And then we also have, for 2 weeks, we bring about 80 migrant children from the state of Delaware with a partnership with Delaware State Department of Education to our campus for them to be able to experience our campus, because most of them will be first-generation college students who have never stepped foot on a campus before. And that, I think, is probably one of the greatest opportunities that we have for our faculty as well our teacher candidates who will be working with students like these when they're in the classroom.
For us in the summer, we've, for the last 6 or 7 summers, we've run a program called Civic Changemakers, where we work in 2 or 3 middle schools with a problem solving, a community engagement, service learning program. So what we last summer had 75 college students, and in the past have had different numbers, but bringing those college students in to learn how to facilitate a service learning curriculum with young people where they're really getting the opportunity to identify both assets and issues in their community and then come up with a solution. So for example, one group saw a broken gate in their school and it made them feel unsafe. And so they worked with their facilities people on their campus, as well as writing a letter to Chancellor Farabee to ask them to fix that gate on their campus. They've created career days. They've done a variety of other kinds of things, including doing anti-gun violence work, which is recognized by some of the peace organizations in DC. So we've been able to do those kinds of summer programs. I will say a barrier is that our institution doesn't have federal work study in the summertime, so that it is difficult to find housing and funding to support them to do that. In addition, Vita, we also have Jumpstart students who are part-time AmeriCorps members, some of whom work with the DC Jumpstart Community Corps. So we really promote a wide variety of both internships and service opportunities for our students in the summer.
Yeah, I didn't do civic change makers, but I have a bunch of tutor friends who did. I mean, just from the perspective of being a tutor in the school year, a lot of these students come back during the school year, and they can see the same people who were leaders in their civic change maker, program, and so a lot of them are much more open to learning really boring stuff like math, because they're like, oh, you work with Abby who did civic change makers with me over the summer. So like these are really important. They're like interconnected, building relationships with these kids, and understanding that like we're all one community, we're all based in one community, and we're all trying to help each other. That's what's really important. And so these summer programs, I think, even as someone who didn't do a summer program, it's helped me with my students a lot.
Yeah, I think for us, so our school year, our semester ends before the actual academic year ends for our K through 12 partners. So as much as possible, we try to encourage our students to continue on even into the beginning of a college student's summer. But once the school year ends, we don't have as much programming running through the summer. We do have some nonprofit partners of ours that offer some opportunities to students to engage with, during the summer. But I'd say that during the summer, we more so start ramping up our recruitment season, and we have found that we're a little more successful when we start that early, on the earlier side. As we all know, there's a background clearance process. So we've also held different info sessions during the summer. Just to get students to start thinking about how they want to get involved and kind of just to, get a jump start on that for the fall semester.
Hi, everybody. My name is Will Brummett. I'm with Campus Compact, and I also, full disclosure, used to work with Amy in the National Center. So I'm curious. I'm sort of want to look beyond the goal of even 2025 and 250,000. I want to sort of offer you each a chance to speak to what resources, opportunities, skill sets for other coalitions would you all need for 15% federal work study active in the community to be the floor and not the ceiling for what you go? You mentioned a little bit federal work study limitations by law around not having federal work study in the summer or other things. I'm just wanting, we're in this space with coalition, a lot of possibilities. I'm wondering long term, what would you see, would each of your institutions, or Leila, what do you feel like students would need to get 50% of your peers involved in this going forward?
I mean, I can start off. Well, so I was part of recruitment this year to recruit to Math Matters as tutors. And a lot of what drew kids to working in like a professional setting was the fact that there is going to be, you can get credit for this. You can get credit, you can take the class. The training sessions are also classes that you can take, and it's a super easy A. So, you know, that really helped with the recruitment process. They were like, ooh, bump in my GPA. Yeah, so that was a big draw. And then on top of that, the fact that it was federal work study was really, really big incentive for a lot of kids. And on top of that, I am pre-med. And so a really big part of being pre-med and applying to med school is the volunteer portion. You have to have a lot of volunteer work. And for a bunch of like pre-med students, they're always looking for a volunteer option. They're like fiending for one. So anything that they can get their hands on, they will do it. And that is like a really big part of like understanding recruitment. We can branch out of just education as well. I am not going to be a teacher when I graduate. I'm not like that. I've never majored in education. That is not my field of interest at all. But I love doing tutoring and Math Matters because it does provide a specific skill set for me personally, which is like when you talk to a student and when they're telling you their problems about, this is the problems that I have with math, and I don't understand this at all. It's a lot like diagnosing a patient. You have to listen to what they're saying and then figure out what's wrong, what the root cause is, and then find the best treatment plan for that. And so it really builds a lot of skills, especially when I want to work with children in the future and be a doctor to children. Understanding and listening to what kids want and how they talk and how they tell you your problems is a really big part of many people's fields. I mean, people who want to work with children and don't want to be educators, for like me, you know, these are really big parts of our field. And so I think a really big part of getting students on college campuses involved, especially with tutoring, is just appealing to what they want, what their interests are, and like finding the specific niche of like, this will build this skill for you. And also you will get a GPA bump if you do this.
I think for me at Salisbury University, you know, we're in a very rural area and we don't have a lot of public transportation. So transportation is always a challenge. We do have a few schools and community centers that are, you know, walkable from our campus, but to get our students out to probably the schools that have the most need, it's a real challenge for us. And so I would say resources to provide transportation and additional work-study dollars so we can have more students qualify.
I think for us, I would love to see just like a larger, just more messaging around federal work study at our institution. There are a lot of federal work study positions at the college, not just what we offer. But I know in being, you know, on campus, talking to students about how they can work with younger students with, you know, with reading or math, and then talking about federal work study, you know, they're instantly like, oh, wow, I'm really interested in this. And so I think it showed me that there's an interest, but it's just how are we getting that message across in a, you know, a bigger campaign or a bigger push for that. I think that would really expand, you know, the number of students that we're able to place in those types of roles.
Yes, and yes to all these. And I think at the policy level, it would be really helpful. I think a lot of colleges don't realize that there is a 7% requirement for community service, and I think it's really important to make that clear. And frankly, I think we should have a higher percentage requirement for community service. 15% would be nice. I know that's a difficult sell, but I think it's very important. I also think it's important to talk about all of the things that were just said here. What are the benefits for students? What are the benefits for communities of this federal work study workforce? I did a quick crib earlier today, and there are 600,000 federal work study students every year. That $1 billion that the U.S. Department of Education provides for this is 600,000 people. And if only 15% are doing community service, that's a lot, but it's not enough. And we could be doing so much more. And I think it's important for communities to understand how powerful the relationships that Leila describes and the skills that can be learned from this are really, really important. There was one more thing I was going to say about this. Oh, and I think it's really important that that set aside not be any job. I think it's really important that it's service and that it's that because we are civic institutions, and part of what we are building is we're not just educating people to become a profession, we're educating them to become civic professionals with a wider set of skill sets, and that service is so important for that. So just a few things.
Amy, thank you so much for tying that together. You took the words right out of my mouth, and I appreciate it because I think, the point that you're raising here of connecting this work to the mission of the institution is so critical. And the fact that, again, public service and career learning can go hand in hand. And Leila, I think you did such a beautiful job of illustrating that, working with children as a doctor, working with children as a tutor develops those skills. And I often joke to my colleagues, I started my career as an elementary school teacher, and those are skills I still use every day with adults. But, it's thinking about that time in the classroom, the adults and caring professionals that were in my room, particularly near peers, college students, there is the actual work that they are doing to help students with reading and math, doing read alouds, working through problem sets, going through long division. And then there's the inspiration of just everyday interacting with someone who looks like them, came from their community, is somebody that maybe was at the school in previous years as a 12th grader, who is coming back and saying, I'm studying to be a doctor, I'm studying to be an engineer, and the possibilities that that can open for students are just tremendous. So I really appreciate how all of those points build together to show, the power of federal work study is one way we can build out those opportunities for college students and K-12 students to be connecting. I also appreciate all of the other programs and supports and infrastructure you all have raised that complement it, because even 600,000 isn't enough. So finding these other ways to scale these roles, and, I think as we spoke to this morning, having other caring adults beyond our college students also engaged in this work becomes really critical. Do we have time for one more question? Okay. Do we have one more question?
Hi, I'm Lindsey Wood-Jeffries with Higher Achievement Mentoring Program, Baltimore, DC, Richmond. And I wanted to better understand this. I don't know enough about federal work study, so I feel a little bit out of my depth, but that 7% requirement, how is that set? How would we advocate to increase it? Please demystify.
I'm happy to jump in, and others who have experience implementing can maybe chime on. At the department, we are implementing the Higher Education Act. So a lot of the requirements around federal work study are set in statute. So the 7% requirement for federal work study dollars to be used for public service is a statutory requirement, as are some of the pieces that were mentioned earlier about whether federal work study dollars can support students during the summer. We do as much as we can within the bounds that we're given, and we try to build in flexibility, and we're very open to feedback from the community about other priorities. I think, potentially encouraging, as we have institutions, to use more than 7% toward public service, in particular for these NPSS aligned roles, is something that we are doing. But I think folks can reach out to their members of Congress, folks can reach out to their constituents and just tell them what their experience has been. And, that's what folks do with us. And so I think everyone in DC is just eager to hear what's working. And I think that policy works best when there is a feedback loop between practitioners and people making decisions in DC. So we're grateful we have so many partners that are close, and also so many partners across the country who are invested in helping us continue to iterate and make federal work study as beneficial as it can be.
this happened, the 7% set aside happened in the mid 1990s. And it hasn't, it was supposed to go up incrementally every year when that happened, but it never did. And it is, I think it's important for nonprofits like yours to talk about the benefits that you get from partnering with institutions, with higher ed institutions in your communities, to be able to say that this is, it meets your mission, it builds things out, and it creates the benefits that we've talked about today. And I mean, it's a super important piece of the work that we need to do.
All right. Well, I am going to go ahead and ask one last question, moderator's privilege to everyone up here. For our lightning rounds before we get into our turn and talk exercise, can you each share some advice that you might have for other institutions aspiring to get involved in either the coalition or, broadly speaking, getting more students to partner with K-12 institutions to do some of these NPSS roles?
I can start. I would say that I think it's really important for us to show students that there's a place for them, regardless of what they might be studying. I think that's kind of been an ongoing theme in some of what things that we've said, but it is, I think the beauty of these student support programs is that students across all types of academic disciplines join in. And of course, we would love to see students, you know, want to become a teacher and go into education for their career. But I think, you know, talking about, you know, what's in it for them as a student, you know, not just federal work study, but letters of recommendation or volunteer service awards. You know, and yeah, so I think there's a lot of ways that we can frame the conversation and help students realize that they're, you know, they can make an impact and that they are needed as well.
I'm going to go from the student level all the way up to the consortium level. I mean, I think there's a lot of organizations that are doing this and are telling the story. So Campus Compact is one of them. APLU is another. Community colleges network. So all the networks of higher education have told this story in the past and do tell this story now. And I think it's really important to talk to your national organization about doing this and to talk to your disciplinary association, if you're a faculty member, about the ways in which these kinds of things build students' skills and build community engagement skills. So I guess I would say just build consortia and tell your story.
So I would suggest thinking out of the box. Don't do things the way you've always done them. I mentioned that transportation is a challenge. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to offer a general education course on site at one of our local high schools that will get our college campus, our college students into that high school campus and give them that access that we really need for students to be able to feel comfortable going back to a high school and helping with the tutoring.
Yeah, I guess I'm going to be the last one to speak. And I just want to use the times to say that I honestly feel like a conduit for my students when I'm up here. A lot of like what I say and what I do is what I see from them. And it's a really big reason why I agreed to do a panel with you guys. I feel like advocating for, you know, my students and for them is like one of the biggest parts of why I chose to still be a math tutor, even with a really, really busy schedule. And that's the thing that I think everyone really needs to understand, that once you start this work, it's really hard to like quit. It's like addictive because you just really fall in love with helping your students and you start really caring about your students. And that's, I think the focus should really be on them. Like, we are helping a community of kids who have been extremely underserved. They were really, really affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. And even before that, I mean, these were systemic issues that were only highlighted by COVID-19. And that's really the most important part, that like once you get started with this stuff, you really start caring about the people involved. And I wish I could have like one of my students come up here and talk about their experiences and why they love Math Matters, or why they love to be tutored by, not just me, but other tutors as well. Because I think that's like, they are the most important voice in this campaign, like in this, in these types of programs. And I think for a long time, they have been very voiceless, and college students have become kind of like their way of telling higher institutions that this is what we need and this is why we need it. So please do it for us. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Leila. That was the perfect last word. All right. With that, I will let you all exit the stage, and I would like us to take a moment to thank our panelists. And I will now turn it over to Sabrina, who leads the Pathways Alliance at InnovateEDU. Sabrina will facilitate a short activity to help each of you think through how this might work in your communities and with your organizations. Thanks, Sabrina.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. And another round of applause for our amazing panelists. And thank you for the work that you do with NPSS and the call to action for supporting higher education. So in the theme of remaining in the classroom, we'd like to do a quick turn and talk. We'd like for you to all turn to someone near you and answer the following questions. What is one step you can take today to engage collaborators at your organization and or in your broader community in this collective effort? And how can NPSS support you in answering this call to action? So we'll give everybody about 5 minutes or so, and then we'll figure out if there's a brave soul in the audience that would like to share some of the things that you discussed. So thank you. So as folks are starting to return, we'd love to hear from one brave soul that would love to share anything that they turned and talked about with their partner. Would anybody like to share? Yes. It's okay. We want to put you on the spot. Thank you guys so much.
I think people are still going. All right. So hi, my name is Keisha Johnstone. I'm with Raising the Village Foundation. And I actually thought of a question that I probably should have asked our panelists while they're there, because we do the high impact tutoring with our DC schools and shelters around, and we do work with GW, and I am a grad too, so yay, and the Federal Work Study Program. But one obstacle that we've encountered, and I've noticed, is that, well, the school system starts around the same time as them, and so to get that those students in the door at the time that it's starting is a kind of an obstacle. And is there anything that can kind of like alleviate or kind of shorten that time frame for those students to kind of get into our program so we can get them into the schools?
Thank you for sharing.
I know we have a lot of folks coming in from their other breakout sessions. We just couldn't stop talking. So welcome to the end of the higher education session. I'm going to very quickly close us out while you all are coming in and getting situated. And then we will get started with our last session right at 3. I just want to thank everyone, including all of you who are in other sessions, for being here with us today. It was so wonderful in this room to hear from our higher education stakeholders. I know we were hearing from constituents all across the NPSS who are working to increase the number of caring adult professionals in elementary and secondary schools. And really today, this work has illuminated for me that the pipeline challenges that we are seeing from early preschool through higher education are interconnected, and it really takes a village and us working together to really address these challenges. In this room, I think we heard about the real benefits of
existing relationships and building on those relationships. It takes trust to work across institutions for colleges and universities to successfully partner with their elementary and secondary schools in their community. There have to be some level of relationships. And I think as we heard from our student speaker, you also have to have a recurring commitment to keep going back into the classroom. Leila mentioned that, it's not just enough for one student to be in the classroom. The whole network of tutors through her program that have been serving in the same schools each year really built a foundation for those students to trust that she was there with good intentions and do good work. And so we need to build a system that works for our students in elementary school and secondary school and into college. And so I just really appreciate the insight that our panelists brought. We have heard from a lot of folks who are engaged. We would love to keep you all engaged. And if you're not a partner yet, please reach out. We would love to have you. Thank you again for joining us for the higher ed session, all the other sessions, and I am going to pause. We will have a very short break, and then we will have a closing plenary with Deputy Secretary of Education, Cindy Martin, right at 3 o'clock. Thank you all.